But I think the goal for today is how can we be meaningful mentors? And I think whether we realize it or not, we are all empowered or can be empowered to be meaningful mentors. So a little bit about myself. As Dr. Kennedy said, I'm Dr. Emily Matula, and I currently work at NASA Johnson Space Center down in Houston, Texas. I'm an EVA or Extra-Vehicular Activity flight controller. I don't know if anybody has visited a NASA facility, but you probably realize that we love our acronyms. I don't know if it's a government thing or what, but we talk in acronyms. But before I got to Houston, I did my education in Michigan and Colorado. So went to the University of Michigan for mechanical engineering, space engineering, and then the PhD in aerospace engineering. And funny enough, the PhD, while it said aerospace engineering, it was based in algae. So my thesis was centered around using algae to support humans in space. So consume that CO2, turn it into oxygen, and then use the water that we grow the algae in for thermal control. So kind of like a algae-filled air conditioning system. But it was a lot of fun to do that, got a lot of cool experiences out of it. With those different experiences, it empowered me to go out and talk to different students. I think one of the benefits of different jobs that we have is, students look at us and they think, wow, they do cool things, or what they're working on is changing the world. And whether, you think of that or not, it is true. You come in contact with different students, and just like you and in your job, there was something at some point along in your path that made you think, wow, this is really cool. So I would say, don't discredit yourself because you do some really awesome things. So you volunteered to be a mentor, or maybe voluntold, but hopefully you came into this position willingly. And the first question you may have is, well, have you been a mentor before? And I know we have a select group here, but if you want to, feel free, open your mic. Have any of you been a mentor before, whether it be for school or for a work type function? I'm seeing some nodding heads. Okay, great. Well, I see some nodding heads, but also I want to say, whether you know it or not, the answer should just be yes, you have been a mentor. Because whether you know it or not, just your interactions day to day, giving somebody some advice, listening to them, helping them through a problem, that's being a mentor, whether you realize it or not. So you can give yourself the title of mentor if you think that you need to sit in front of a group of people and talk to them about something, but really we practice these mentoring techniques on a daily basis. So what I want to leave you guys with is, a mentor is not really a teacher. So a mentor, you're not doing the information dump, you're not doing the data dump, you are actually a skills developer. So think of yourself as somebody who is taking in the information and helping to parse it out, or helping to empower, in this case, the students that you're going to be working with, to organize their thoughts and go about either their research or their designs in a meaningful manner. And also, you're helping to build their networks, so you don't have to know everything. I think that was something that I had to learn as being a mentor, is, while this Martian Greenhouse project that I was a part of really closely aligned with a lot of my research, there were a lot of aspects that students were asking me about, electrical systems and different types of radiation, thermal generators, and I had absolutely no idea, but I kind of knew some people that could help them out. And so I was able to point them in the right direction and have them ask around. So that's more of what you can bring to the table, is showing students how to network, how to use their different resources, but then also expose them to all these different resources that could be available to them. But then you also want to make sure that you can empower yourself in a new mentor position. So we always talk about the who, what, where, and why. And I obviously made the why bigger because I feel like that's probably one of the most important aspects of the who, what, where, why. And of course, the why is, why are you doing this? Hopefully it's because you are trying to give back to the community. You're interested in, bringing something to the students, whether it be your personal experience or information, or maybe that network that we talked about. But there's got to be a why, because otherwise, if you just show up, you'll be a decent mentor, but you've kind of have to have that passion behind it. Otherwise, it's just going to go so-so. So that's the why part. But the rest of it, to empower yourself, is the who, the what, and the where. So I put that there because as a mentor, at least for me, and I know some of my colleagues, clear expectations really, really help out the relationship. And when I say clear expectations, it's knowing things like, how long am I expected to be at each session? How many sessions are there? What are the goals of this overall project? How long is the project? So just setting those boundaries or those expectations, because you are a commodity. You yourself are a resource, and you don't want to just expend everything that you have. If there are clear expectations and boundaries that say, oh, we only need you for an hour, or we're only expecting you to come in, once or twice a week, that helps, make it clear to everybody what you're comfortable with and what the expectations are of the program. And if this is a program that has been going on for quite some time, you should feel free to talk to previous mentors that were in the program, get an understanding of how they approached mentoring, or if it's one that's ongoing, maybe sit in a session. Ask, hey, can I just come and observe, a session or two, just to kind of figure out the approaches and that relationship between the students and the mentor. In this case, because it is a newer program, feel free to connect with the teachers beforehand. And I'll talk about that a little bit here in a minute. But you can also rely on your mentors around you as well. So it sounds like in this program in particular, it's kind of like the Martian Greenhouse, where you're going to have a number of mentors. So feel free to maybe take some time in the week and maybe chat with some of the other mentors for 10-20 minutes. Hey, what's going on? What's your experience? And just kind of share in that experience, because you all will kind of be doing the same thing together. So there may be some different things that you could actually be a mentor to the mentors if that opportunity arises. So then for the program side as well, it's okay to ask the program for an outline of the program, something that gives that mission statement, those goals, and those expectations, how many times a week, just to help you figure out, how are you going to parcel out your time? How are you going to make sure that you can bring your best self to these different sessions? And we talked about before a little bit that mentorship is another ship. So Dr. Kennedy pointed out all the different types of ships. And I think that is a great analogy of building ships. So in order to build these ships, there's a couple things that you can do to make it a little bit easier. So first, introduce yourself. So that's exactly why I brought that slide to the front, because I just wanted to let you know who I was, so that it didn't seem like it was just some random person that clicked on a Zoom meeting and got in front. Um, and it can also start to help that familiarity with your students, especially if they see something that they think is really cool in your slide or something that they want to ask you about. Because you want to start to build that relationship with the students so that they can ask those questions that they may be uncomfortable with, or start to dig a little bit deeper in their understanding of the different concepts you're going to bring up. I know that there were quite a few different things that I brought up in my sessions with my students, where I could see the question marks, and I could see, not the confusion, but just the understanding wasn't there yet. And so the thing that I thought was really cool is they felt comfortable enough to be around their fellow students and to ask me, hey, Emily, I don't understand this concept, or, oh, Dr. Matula, that part that you said there, how does that actually work? And I think that's really empowering, and that's something that we need to instill in our students, to ask those types of questions, because I think that's where the best type of learning comes from. So introduce yourself, start that relationship, help out the teachers. This is something that I didn't realize until I started talking to my aunt, who was a former science teacher. And that is, ask the teachers what they're teaching. So if there's a particular section of the project that you're working on that you can actually tuck in little pieces of information, or little bits about the lesson plan that the teachers are teaching that week or in the next couple of weeks, you will get so many brownie points. But it helps the teachers out, and it actually helps to show the real world purpose of what the teachers are teaching. There have been plenty of times I have sat, and I remember this very distinctly, sitting in my classroom back in middle school going, why the heck are we learning this? This makes absolutely no sense. And it wasn't until, later on, when math was introduced to physics, that it's like, oh, that's why we learned about algebra. Okay, this actually makes sense. So asking the teachers, what are their lesson plans, and is there anything that they're learning about in the next couple of weeks that maybe you could put in, is super helpful. Or even just messages that can also help out. And ask the students if there's anything that they would be interested in learning, or they wish that they were researching. And I've included this in the mentor best practices, but we have different resources at hand. So if students aren't comfortable saying, hey, I wanted to do this thing, but it didn't work out, or this is boring to me, I'd rather do this, give them an outlet. See if it's okay if the student emails you with the teacher CC'd, different ideas or questions, or even have a Google form that is accessible to you and the teacher, so that they can write whatever they feel like they need to, and feel comfortable about it. But really, if there's anything that you can take away from today's being a meaningful mentor session, is just listen. And that's what Dr. Kennedy said before, is a majority of the mentorship is just being present, listening, and showing that you're paying attention by asking those questions back to the students. I thought that was probably one of the best days that I had with some of my students that I was mentoring. Was we had a presentation that we were working on, and we actually ended up stopping on one slide that was about hydroponic systems. And they told me about their system, and I just asked little questions, and they weren't even really hard questions about anything. It was just what was the thought process? Or you selected this for a reason. Can you tell me about that reason? And one student would pipe up and say, I was thinking about this, or this happened. And then another student would say, oh yeah, and because they mentioned that idea, I had this idea. And so it was just really cool to see those networks coming together. So just listen. You don't have to teach them anything. You just have to listen. And then finally, continuing the relationship. So once the session is done, and we all kind of depress, okay, we get a little bit of our time back. Reach back out to the teacher and just ask them, how is it going? Has the group continued on? Is there anything that would be helpful feedback for future collaboration or future projects? And at least in the case of Martian Greenhouse, there have been some groups that have continued on because they've just been so passionate about their project, which is awesome. The other thing too is, like Martian Greenhouse, we actually have a continuation. So we had session 2.0 late last year, and we're looking to do 3.0 again later this year. So what we're going to do is actually go back to those teachers that were participating in 2.0 and ask them if they would like to participate again in 3.0. Because you just want to continue that relationship and that passion. And with the teachers already having gone through this project, they kind of have a heads up of what's going to go on. And it goes back to that empowerment. The teachers feel empowered. You know what the expectations are of the mentor relationship and the project. And it just helps to make everybody comfortable.